Hello, Happy New Year. Hope you're off to a fantastic start to 2020. Welcome to Maverick Dreamers and Thinkers. I'm Chloe Cho. What is your New Year's resolution? Is living more sustainably something that's been on your mind? For a start, what if I asked you to pick the single largest pollutant in the world's oceans? Your answer would be either plastic bottles or plastic bags. It certainly was the case with me before I met our guest today. Well, our answers are wrong. Did you know that cigarette butts are the single most collected item on the world's beaches? Also, you probably believe, as I did, that you are doing your part to save the planet by separating plastic bottles, glass, milk cartons, etc. when you put them in recycling bins, right? You'd be surprised to learn that regardless of where you live around the world, much of that doesn't have secondary value, so ends up in incineration before heading off to a landfill. If so, what can we do to save the planet? Why is there such a disconnect between what we understand and the reality when it comes to recycling? This is why we need to embrace the concept of upcycling, according to our guest Arthur Huang. The 41-year-old eco-warrior from Taiwan is a structural engineer, architect, innovator, professor, as well as the founder and CEO of Miniwiz, an upcycling company with offices in Taiwan, Singapore, Beijing, and Milan. Miniwiz is a leader in sustainability today, striking up partnerships with top global brands including Nike, Coca Cola, and Prada, as well as such superstars as Jackie Chan. Yet, its 15-year journey has been anything but smooth sailing. Okay, Arthur, thank you so much for joining us. It's really nice to see you again. You are wearing so many hats. You are an archaeologist, you are a historian, you're a structural engineer, designer, eco-warrior, and so many other things. Entrepreneur, right?
No, actually, I never thought we were in that many things. We just have lots of different interests. But in general, there's one giant interest to turn trash into something of value. And we think that will save the environment. We think that will save carbon footprint.
So why are you so passionate about turning trash into treasure, turning trash into something of value? When did this passion come about?
It really started when we were studying history in Rome. Because once you realize the ancients are actually a lot smarter than what we envision. They were actually using all the amphora, the packaging, food packaging, to build these beautiful buildings that we are taking photo of today, and that's still influencing all the architecture design from Paris all the way to New York, Washington, D.C. Just think about it. Deep inside, all those walls are actually made from packaging waste.
Enlighten me a little bit. I've been to Rome. I've been to a lot of nice places, exotic places, checked out the archaeological ruins, and I didn't know that the Pantheon, the Colosseum, they were made of trash.
They use the brick as a scaffolding for the concrete. So pretty much the wall is actually really thick. So they use the thin layer of brick as a scaffolding. Then they pour all the trash in the middle to use as an actual structure. So indirectly, the brick is actually decorative. And also the marble are decorative. So these are also thin veneer of decorations. But in reality, the real structure is structured by the trash.
That's fascinating. My understanding was that they built these things usually with marble, soil, whatever that they had, and they just put some volcanic ash in, which is why those pantheons, colosseums, those have stood the test of time for thousands of years.
Yeah, so back in the days, the packaging waste is actually terracotta. It's actually the amphora terracotta. And those are actually very durable material. They use for single-use packaging. So then you use that to turn that into building material. Of course, on top of that, there's a lot of building technology in the cement and the concrete side, which is where you're mentioning. To lighten the structural load, they started using different type of ashes, tufa block, which is the rock with lots of holes in it, lots of air. So even the ancients know how to use air one of the lightest material to structure their buildings.
That's what you learned when you were studying archaeology and history in Rome. So if the ancient people knew how to recycle and upcycle, how come that same thinking, philosophy, technology, it's not being handed down to the future generations when today, arguably, we're supposed to be far more high-tech?
Yeah, and far more part of an ecosystem. Before World War II, most of our economy is still quite circular in some way. So in the last 80 years, because the single-use capitalistic, I would say the rise of finance industries, that also created this weird system that we're living in right now, because nobody is responsible for end of life. Consumer are not, the cities are not, the companies certainly not. And so all of a sudden you have a whole generation of material just misplaced. So that's why there's this trash issue. So especially when you found out the reality of these issues, then you get really angry. How can someone's not thinking about this, not doing anything about this? It's because we are all drinking the same Kool-Aid, right? Like we are all a part of that system. So if today you say, I want to be an eco-warrior, okay, sure. How about you pick up the trash?
Becomes a different equation.
Become a different equation that's not showable, right? Also, material is one of the oldest industry in the last 200 years. So, and managing water is also one of, these are all relating to life and death, right? If water is for life, then all the other stuff is death, right? So this is the oldest industry. So to disrupt oldest industry is quite difficult.
The global construction market is valued at trillions of dollars, and little has changed in building materials over the years, according to Arthur. The use of concrete and bricks is traced all the way to the Roman Empire more than 2,000 years ago. The idea to disrupt the status quo in global construction by taking a page out of the Roman playbook came after a dare in the early 2000s, when a 24-year-old Arthur was teaching architecture at a Taipei university upon returning from the United States. You were teaching at a university and you had this Eureka moment. What was it?
I overheard students talking about me behind my back. First of all, they don't understand what I'm talking about. Maybe it's a language issue or learning how to do architecture. They just want to know how to make building pretty. And then you're all of a sudden talking about embedded footprints, the reason for the constructions. And then everyone just like get very confused. And then they like, look, this young kid doesn't know what he's talking about. And show me an example. Wow, that was a Eureka moment, because show me an example. That is almost like a dare.
Yeah, you're right. Because until then, you had all the principles, you had all the theory in your head, but you didn't have these examples in practice.
You publish your thesis, you publish a paper, articles. Yeah, people talk about it. Show me something. Then when the student said that behind your back, you're like, it's so true what they said, because this is the best Eureka moment that anybody can be nudged into starting a company.
Almost 20 years ago, you had this Eureka moment and you went on an entrepreneurial journey. So what were your biggest challenges? You had 3 bankruptcies and your family, your parents even removed your name from a family trust because there's so much volatility in being an entrepreneur, right?
No. First of all, I don't know what I signed. But in general, they don't want me to be associated with any of a family asset because they know how tough it is to be an entrepreneur. I think this is also very important for an entrepreneur because when you left your backup system, then you become very aggressive. And you also compete at a much more efficient way, right? So I think that's one of a great learning your parents can gift it to you. I think that is the reality I was faced with.
From professor to entrepreneur, you're going from a comfortable job to throwing yourself into the deep end and really testing your knowledge out in the markets. What was that like?
That was fun. I never really liked school, to tell you the truth. Once you're in the real world, there's real life considerations. I love these constraints in terms of financials. It's a balancing act between vision and reality. You always constantly have to have a long view and a short view and be very honest with what you can actually execute.
So what were some of the initial stumbling blocks that you faced? Once you set up Miniwiz,
we do have lots of incremental success. And that is what kind of validated our value within the system, right? So for example, we're very lucky in the beginning that the first product we launched in 2006 and 2007 gave us $2.7 million of revenue.
That's big. What was it?
It was a recycled paper solar panel and a recycled ABS wind power generator. They can combine to power, back then, your iPod.
Oh, wow.
So using green energy and recycled material to power your digital lifestyle. That was the whole concept. So we basically shrink our ideal into something that's tangible very quickly. And it was on a lot of major publications in New York, the New York Times, all that stuff. So it was even on Wire. That's one of the coolest gadget to get. So all of a sudden you get a lot of tractions. And this we're lucky. And I think the financial crisis in the 2007 and 2008 also taught us a lesson that if you're a product company, consumer-based company, like this is not going to go very well.
Why? It's just too competitive? There are too many fads?
Everything is a fad. If you think about it, look at all the brands out there, even consumer brand, it comes in and out. Rarely you get brands like Nike, right?
But you eventually did go on to work with Nike. So how do you make the jump from small consumer gadget product maker and then all of a sudden Nike comes calling?
Because after the financial crisis, we decided to focus back into what we're really good at, which is building material. We also got a chance to build one of a 30,000 square feet building.
Using 1.5 million plastic bottles in the world's first ever structure built entirely from garbage, Arthur designed the Eco-Arc Pavilion to raise awareness about recycling, which served as an exhibition hall during the 2010 Taipei International Flora Expo. Powered by solar energy, the massive recycled pavilion was hailed as the world's lightest and breathable environmental miracle, strong enough to weather typhoons and earthquakes.
All of a sudden, the media took attention. So that also kickstarted our building material side of our work. What's interesting about architecture is the influence is very long-term. Physically, stay there forever, right? Of course, then okay, Nike is like, can we work on something together? But we did work with Nike on material development many years ago. So I did have that family background to be able to work with them on that issue. This became a kind of basis of knowledge to work with different brands around the world.
And so when did Nike happen and you ended up making high-functioning sports gear for them?
Yeah, Nike decided to launch this product, which now is ubiquitous everywhere. It's called the Flyknit. The Flyknit is a knit 100% polyester-based shoe that can be quickly changed into different styles. It's like a sock, right, with the sole, right? For us, they decided to work with us on trying to come up with a recycled material for this type of technology with German knitting machine called Stahl. And then from that, we also turned the material, recycled polyester yarn, into architecture material. So we built the experience stores for them. We built the experience exhibition for them, all based on this technology.
Where does the polyester come from? Is it plastic bottles?
Yeah, polyester, for example, our drinking Coca Cola bottles, water bottles, orange juice cartons, they are currently made from polyester. That's called PET. What we're trying to do is, at that time, is still quite rare, is to take PET, recycled plastic bottle, into yarns. Yarn has a much higher price point than the plastic bottle.
That's true.
There's a bit of transformation process because you need the recycling process in place. You also need to have the mechanical and chemical processes in place. So it's all about the strength because the shoe requires lots of strength. The machine also requires different type of feeding viscosity of the elasticity of the strength of a yarn. But how can we have something that's very shiny by changing the section of a yarn? So we change the section of a yarn to triangle. So it's actually able to reflect lights better. So you can reduce the dyeing agent, which is normally the dyeing agent is actually what's causing the chemical pollution in the water. So we're trying to reduce the footprint on the chemical side, energy side, and also on the product side on every level.
Who figures all these things out? Because it's not just about design, it's not just about structural engineering. You need to understand how all of these different materials and how these different components function and how to break them down and remold them in a way.
I think it's much easier than it sounds.
I think you're a real whiz kid.
No, it's much easier than it sounds. And then there is a base of this technology already out there. It's not like we invent anything. Yeah. So it is literally just taking a set of technology. We did invent a couple processes that's completely brand new. It does have international patent in the US, EU, and all that stuff. But a lot of that we're leveraging 40 years, 80 years of the technology that's out there. And what's interesting today is that Google became our best friend. What we do today cannot be credited saying that we're some genius. No, it's because the internet is the genius. It's a collective knowledge of human technology.
So Google helped you.
Yeah, a lot.
In terms of connecting some of the dots.
I'm not trying to sell Google, right? I'm just saying this is a reality for us today. You have the data. You have the knowledge. As long as you know what type of question to ask.
If the processes are all out there, the data is readily available, how come people are not doing it?
They're not engineers. They're business professionals or social entrepreneurs. You see what I mean? So that is a huge difference. They're media people. They're missing the kind of the prerequisite, which is the...
You need to do it.
Yes, exactly. So doing it require engineering knowledge. Otherwise, how do you know what type of machine to buy or to turn the torque into or heat up whatever the material to, right?
As Arthur tries to unlock the potential of trash, he was approached by none other than movie superstar Jackie Chan, who was seeking redemption, in his own words, upon getting increasingly concerned about the environmental impact from demolished movie sets, burnt-up vehicles, and tens of thousands of water bottles each time he was filming a movie. The partnership saw Arthur taking the world's first mobile solar-powered recycling machine called Trashpresso to the remote mountains of the Tibetan Plateau at 4,500 meters above sea level, where Jackie Chan was on location. There, Trashpresso transformed plastic bottles into architectural tiles, giving discarded wastes a new lease of life. This was an experiment that was filmed and turned into a Nat Geo documentary in 2017. Just as plastic and other materials were recycled and then upcycled in the Tibetan mountains, Arthur says localizing the collection process is key, as there isn't enough secondary market value for recycled materials to travel long distances. Plus, it's most important to make sure that the materials are kept clean. Your office, Miniwiz, is credited with coming up with more than 1,200 new materials based on trash materials. And also, you came up with this very interesting machine called Trashpresso. It'll do everything. Transform trash into something else. And you've even partnered with famous celebrities like Jackie Chan. So obviously, you're getting a lot of attention, a lot of press. And yet, why is it still such an uphill battle?
Everybody who joined the company or thinking of investing in the company always say, wow, this is going to be the next big thing. A lot of people on the outside world, they look at this as the next big thing coming, and we constantly underperform in terms of money.
Why is it so tough to break even?
We break even, but it's just really tough. There is an inherent status quo that's in the market. Our direct competitors are the biggest material company that's out there. They're all 150-year-old, 100 billion plus company, and they have network of sales and material distributions for the last 80 years. This is the personal relationship part. That's why we get threatened by when we try to sell material into any industries, because all the industry material are already monopolized by the material company. So you cannot scale. Nobody allows you to have that first consistent cash flow. So we have been trying different business models, trying to be as smart as possible, as nimble as possible to try to even get the revenue in. Let's say consumer goods. The consumer goods company goes in and out of fashion so quickly, no one's going to bet on recycled material into a consumer business either. You always got this initial interest, it scale 2%. Because people are afraid One thing is their existing inertia within the supply chain.
So even though you have partnerships with big companies like Nike and even Prada, Coca Cola, what you're doing for them, these are not the main frontline products that'll go to market. It's somewhere back in the catalog, and it's not enough to scale that is going to give your company enough cash flow to make it into a truly thriving business.
On the top management side, they all want to do good. Nobody wants to do bad, right? They want to do good to the environment. They want to be good to their shareholder. These mega company has existing relationship with the families that is supporting them, right? We are talking about multi-$100 million of procurement every year, right? All of a sudden, this little kid from Asia with some new material is going to cut in. Come on.
In a way, it's kind of like a cartel everywhere, right?
It is cartel everywhere. I got a lesson in New York when I was trying to distribute material in New York City. And the guy just dragged me to the side after the meeting. He says, look, I have 30 family depend on this $500,000 next month, and you're killing them.
That's the stark reality Arthur faces on the ground as he adds that it's easy to have great ideas, but figuring out a successful business model is another matter. Citing the examples of Uber, WeWork, and other startups that offer choice services or products at rock-bottom prices, don't turn a profit but stay afloat thanks to investor dollars. Arthur's company Miniwiz survived for the past 15 years without investor dollars, a rarity for a business in sustainability, as most don't make it past 2 to 3 years. But as Arthur looks to grow Miniwiz further, he is changing tack. Miniwiz has recently won institutional backing from Alibaba Taiwan Entrepreneurs Fund, Singapore's Temasek-linked Pavilion Capital, and venture capital firm W.I. Harper as they test new markets and try to build a suitable business model to scale the business internationally. Amid plans for international expansion, Arthur is hoping that growing awareness towards sustainability will encourage people to change their mindsets and perceptions beyond simply recycling so that consumers will even decorate their homes and offices with upcycled furnishings as tastefully displayed in the so-called House of Trash in Milan. It's a bold bet that Arthur hopes will pay off.
We are very lucky because we have architecture. Because architecture is a much bigger ticket. It's also much harder to go in. You have to go in there with engineering, you have to go in there with design. So this is why we are different from business professionals or NGOs trying to do sustainability, because at least you have a minimum scale. Like a building is like $3 million. $3 million might not seem a lot in the building industry, but it's a lot for any company to feed on.
Yeah, that's true. Because if you're making small, handbags out of coconut husks or whatever, it's like $2, $5.
Yeah, and how many bags do you have to sell to afford a team to come up with new materials again? So this type of project base is very difficult, but at least it affords us to be able to build our own lab, build our own machines. And as we start to scale in machines, we become much more profitable.
Now that Miniwiz is a 15-year-old company, it's no longer really a startup. You're present in so many cities in terms of the architecture, the beautiful structures that you have. You have some consumer products. You've partnered with Nike, Prada, Coca Cola, all these names. Why is execution still difficult?
And that's why we are teaming up with institutional professionals. That's why we think we need help now. What we need is business partner to be able to build a business model to scale, right? And why we're doing with Ali and W.R. Harper is because the AI play. Temasek and Pavilion is with the infrastructure play, because these are the couple of avenues that we're a smart digital way of building new decentralized infrastructure. That is why we partner with them, and that's why they partner with us. And everyone's testing. We're testing this idea, whether this will scale, right? Because this will leapfrog the recycling, environmental compaction of these pollution technology in a decentralized way.
Just going back to the business model, your materials are there. If you collect trash and you've got mountains of glass bottles or PET bottles or whatever it is, do you see what I mean? You don't need to buy the fabric or anything. You do have the raw materials right in front of you, and yet Why is it so difficult to generate profits or even getting to the part of breaking even?
I think we do not dare to go into the consumer side, yeah? Because we thought that is even more risky. So we always stick with the B2B model. We did try lavishly in a B2C company and also went bust badly. It does have a lot of interest from the market, but it doesn't really convert into the cash flow that we're expecting.
As Arthur wages a spirited battle to get people to become more conscious, he says the only way to save the planet is by fundamentally rethinking the entire system, from fast fashion, which is blamed for producing 10% of all carbon emissions, to single-use disposable packaging, from food and beverages to cleaning products and consumer electronics. He points to a radical solution in the form of a new circular delivery service for consumers called Loop, being launched by a New Jersey company called TerraCycle. The Loop subscription system is about replacing disposable packaging with reusable materials such as glass, alloys, and engineered plastics, getting them delivered via UPS in a specially designed shipping tote, and then returning them through a free pickup service so that the products, be it shampoos, ice cream, snacks, or cleaning detergents, are automatically refilled in the same containers. Here, the Loop system hygienically cleans and sanitizes the empty packaging that is sent back. P&G, Unilever, PepsiCo, Nestle, and Danone are among a growing coalition of FMCG, or fast-moving consumer goods companies, that have signed up in support of this system that promotes reusing and returning packaging materials.
The earth doesn't care about us being sustainable. We care about earth being sustainable. For us only, right?
Right. So, but as the world becomes more aware, does that make your life a bit easier compared to 15 years ago when the awareness wasn't there?
Oh, for sure. We have arrived to a different level where now it's all about delivery and price. What is the fair price to the environment and who is paying for that? So this is business model innovation more than technology innovation, because before there's no technology. For me, I couldn't find Google, or I couldn't go to a company to say, I want this machine to turn waste fast fashion goods into new fabric. Now I do. So the technology is there. So now it's about how to turn that into a model that is sustainable for the young generation of designer that's coming online, for a company like us, and for other company that wants to do the same thing.
Is there a competitor in the market? Do you have a competitor?
We are probably the most comprehensive out of a whole supply. But then there are also new business invention model. Like, I recently just talked to Tom from TerraCycle. They invented this new system called Loop. You have milk delivered to your house, and then you put the bottle back. It's a business model invention. Or I would say the Internet of Things, the cloud computing, the way how information are being shared, are being scanned. That is a different type of technology. It's an integration technology of an old business model. And that is another kind of spectrum of technology on material recapturing.
How can people help you?
What we need is distribution partners. We are only 100 people strong, let's say. How can you actually deal with a problem that's much greater, right? And surprisingly, NGOs are the worst, because NGOs are always fighting for resources, right? Fighting for sponsorships. So they are actually in a very weird competitive space.
Turf wars.
Turf wars. Yeah, okay. Turf war in any type of business, this is a universal idea. So we're looking for regional major partners. Don't worry about technology, it's all here. Okay. What is your localized business model where we can support? So we are trying that, for example, in Germany, in Italy, Thailand, and also in China. So hopefully there's some business model can come out from these collaborations. These are JV partnerships.
Throughout the 15-year journey, what was the toughest moment that nearly broke you?
Betrayal internally, but these days I don't even use the word betrayal. That's just over-exaggerated. I think it's just that managing people's ego, what really breaks you. We're in the industry, it's not much money in it yet. It's all about hypothetical, like intangible asset, intangible value, what a person brings to the table.
And when you went from being a professor to entrepreneur, that took a huge leap of faith. What would be the most important lesson that you learned that you want to share with others who want to take that entrepreneurial journey?
If you cannot start a party, and if your party has 0 people want to show up or very few, don't start a business. I find this is really funny. We have a couple people, students or friends or even other colleagues in the office that want to start their own business. But they are like the super quiet type that never want to engage with people, you know? They just want to do their thing. And they want to start their own business. I find that very strange because how are you going to even get a critical mass of people supporting you?
And when you look back, are you where you thought you would be?
I really did not think much about what the future holds. 15 years, it sounds like a lot, but to me, it's not. To me, I think I really still have that same fire, maybe if not worse, than 15 years ago. And for me, this is a 60-year venture, not a 15-year or 20-year venture. So I never really have a goal saying I want to get to IPO or whatever, like, or be this at a certain age. No.
Something that you shared with me, which I thought was quite interesting, and I reflected on it, which is, as a startup entrepreneur, you are often cash-strapped. And being cash-strapped is good, but once the money starts coming in, that's when you start making decisions. That nearly killed your business. You blew away millions of dollars in a matter of a few years. What happened? Why is it such a curse, really a blessing and a curse, when the money actually starts coming in?
Deep inside, I really have that appreciation that I think someone's actually looking out for me very well, because every time there is a success, especially financially or reputation-wise or a certain Mission Impossible project all of a sudden just blow up, actually put me back to a humble pie and make you understand what are the reality at stake. And I think this is what keep me honest.
You're meeting a lot of people in high places. You're off to KL tomorrow of Malaysia. You're going to do something with Obama. I mean, I'm sure he's going to open doors. I'm sure there's so many people who can open doors.
We're supposed to have lunch with Obama tomorrow, but opening doors is easy, I think. Execution is still much harder.
As Arthur strives to make sustainability work as a thriving international business, his nemesis is a complex and ingrained problem called overconsumption. While there is no single miracle cure, he's trying to satiate human desires for consumption by unlocking the potential of trash through circular technologies. As 5G empowers a generation of decentralized, customizable upcycling solutions for a world saddled with more than 100 years' worth of plastic, Arthur hopes that more people will embrace upcycled goods into their surroundings as he breathes new life into packaging materials, cigarette butts, plastic bottles, and beyond by transforming them into beautiful furnishings and objects of desire. Hope you enjoyed this unique and insightful perspective on sustainability through Arthur Huang's personal story. Look out for him. And thank you so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for another dynamic episode right here on Maverick Dreamers and Thinkers. Do subscribe and give us a quick review. If you're on social media, do reach out and share what you think of the podcast. To all the great dreamers out there, I'm Chloe Cho. Take care and enjoy the festive season. Happy New Year.